Hey everyone, my name's Sarah Lavonne and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You have been asking for forever. This has been in my queue for such a long time. And so today we have made it to this is at least a 3-part series all about twins. So if you have had multiples, if you are pregnant with twins, if you are interested in really interesting birth information, this video / these videos are for you. So make sure you subscribe down below because I'm gonna be back with 2 additional videos about twins. Today, we are gonna be talking all about why twins happen and what are the variations of types of twins. And then in part 2, we're gonna talk about your birth. What does the birth look like? What are the differences in a twin birth? And even I'll mention a triplet birth. That's just so much less common than a twin birth. And then in part 3, I'm gonna be back and we're gonna talk about why they're considered a high-risk pregnancy. I feel like we gotta talk about the fun stuff to get to the maybe less fun stuff, but also still really interesting and really helpful information to know because you are smart, wise individuals, and I want you to make the most informed decisions possible for your upcoming labor and births. And then I have it in my head for the queue is a breastfeeding twins video. So let me know if you want it, because if you want it, that can be a part 4 coming at some point. I wanna know in the comment box down below if you have experience with twins, what type of twins they were as you learn through the rest of this video. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, subscribe down below, and then let's get going. I wanna help you understand what are the types of twin births. And that sounds funny because when we talk about twins, we're talking about 2 babies in 1 womb, 1 uterus, giving birth out of 1 person. Now, there are considered multiples. Twins are a form of multiples. There's triplets, quadruplets, octuplets. That is gonna be extremely rare. When we talk about twins, that's gonna be the most popular, most common type of multiple birth, and they account for about 3% of live births in the United States, and of the multiples, about 97% of multiple births in the United States. So that last 3% is like triplets, quadruplets, etc., more babies. This is extremely common for multiples, but also not that common in the grand scheme of things related to pregnancies. Mind you, how many of you know someone who has had twins? Which to me, most of us, I know, in fact, I have one in the room right now who happens to be a twin. And so this is uncommon, but it's also very common. So whether or not you have twins, stay tuned because I find this information super interesting to relate to even your twin parent friends. So first, we're gonna look at the water bag. When we look at the water bag of the baby, you can have 1 baby, typically with a singleton pregnancy or 1 baby. You're gonna have 1 baby inside of the amniotic sac, which is this thin membrane. It doesn't look like fabric. It's more like really a balloon. And then they have the placenta, the umbilical cord, and then that's inside of the uterus. Now for twins, you can have 1 water bag or 2 water bags, okay? And I will separate these in a complicated way in a second, but I want you to understand the concept first. Mono means 1, di means 2. So the question then is, how many sacs do I have? Now, in the water bag, we say like the amniotic sac breaks, right? That your water breaks. When that happens, there's actually 2 layers to the amniotic sac. There's the chorion and there's the amnion. And so typically, again, if you have 2 sacs, typically babies are gonna be separated into 2 chorions, 2 amnions, meaning they're in 2 separate structures, like this. Okay, so they're gonna be totally separate. They'll be smushed together, but there's no hugging of the babies inside. There is full membranes between the 2. But sometimes they may look on ultrasound and it looks like they're in 1 water bag. And there may be 1 or 2 placentas. We're getting to that in a second. Okay, so it looks like there's 1 water bag, but if we look a little bit closer, inside, there's actually 2 little sacs inside. And so that's where your provider, you're gonna be followed by a high-risk doctor, and they're gonna look at what's the water bag situation, okay? How many amniotic sacs do I have? What's my number of chorions versus amnions? None of that really matters, but are they separated or are they together is really the question you want to know. And then we get into the baby situation, okay? Because, and especially we're gonna talk about fraternal twins or identical twins and how we know the difference, all right? So then we're gonna look at the zygosity of the pregnancy. And all that is fancy words for were 2 eggs fertilized or were 1 egg fertilized that split into 2. So we're going back to conception here, and this is like high school sex ed 101, all right? So every time you ovulate as the pregnant person, the woman, okay, you ovulate, you release an egg, hopefully 1, maybe 2 in this case, but let's say you release 1 egg into the fallopian tube. It travels down and there's some semen, there's some spermies that have been released into your reproductive system and they go after that egg. They are running there and one of their very strong little spermies, which you can see here, which the sperm, okay, comes and it hits the egg and it smushes itself inside and then boom, all of this biology starts happening where the cell starts multiplying and the DNA gets meshed together. So XY chromosomes, right, start making, or X chromosomes, okay, so that you have this really zygote, right, that eventually forms. And there's different, as it progresses, it becomes different things. For this case, we're gonna talk about the zygote, okay? So in this case, you can see that this 1 egg was fertilized with 1 sperm, okay? This equals 1 pregnancy. But what happens is, as it's splitting, and really what happens is, in our cells, we're constantly turning over cells. So our cells, they multiply, meaning they split, they grow, they more, and then this becomes like millions of cells, which turns into us, which is like billions and billions of cells, trillions of cells that all work together for the sake of our lives. Now, when it's splitting, what happens is that this DNA splits into 2 separate humans, okay? More often, they're gonna be identical. You can see why, because they're identical, okay? We'll get to that in a second. But this means that we had a monozygotic, mono meaning 1, type of DNA put together where you had 1 egg that splits into 2 or more babies, more often 2, okay? So that makes sense. That's one way. It is a monozygotic baby. Or you ovulate in your life, and this does happen, where instead of ovulating 1 egg into the world, you actually ovulate more than 1 egg and make more than 1 egg available to be fertilized. Does it always mean that they're fertilized? Not always, right? But and remember, when there's semen inside of you, it's not just 1 sperm that gets to the egg. There are millions and billions of sperm. There's so many available. And the best one, survival of the fittest, runs to that egg and bloop, gets itself in. And so another one happens to bloop, get itself into the 2 eggs available. Now we have 2 separate sets of DNA. These are dizygotic, meaning 2 separate, very different humans, right? And they're always different humans, but for the sake of DNA purposes, you can see where when you split the 2, they're gonna have more similar sets of DNA versus these are 2 totally separate eggs being made available. Now, dizygotic, these 2 separate types of eggs are gonna be way more common than the monozygotic twins. Because as you can imagine, typically as we split our cells, we don't split into 2 people, right? That like it's more common for them to just grow respectively. And it's gonna be, as far as numbers go, about 70% of twin pregnancies are here. About 30% are gonna be this type of pregnancy where you've split the 1 egg. Here's the other side note, that we are seeing an increase in twins as we've had an increase in what we call assisted reproductive technology, otherwise known as fertility treatments, right? Fertility treatments could be as simple as Clomid, which is a medication that you take to help ovulation. What happens with that is there a possibility, if we're talking about ovulating, meaning releasing one of these eggs, if you're taking help with that, it's possible. If you have 2 mature eggs, they can both be released. Or IVF, in vitro fertilization. You can let us know if you feel comfortable sharing your experience with that. That sometimes, and especially in the past, and this is changing based on like the trends, but especially years and years ago, when families would seek the help of a fertility specialist, that they would go and they would talk about IVF, and the recommendation a lot of times was to put in 2 separate embryos that they've made outside in the lab that are already fertilized, put them into the uterus, hoping that one would stick. But the risk of that is that if you put two in and you have a healthy, nice uterus in there, that they both can stick and you end up with twins. So we saw an increase in twins in especially the United States, but also world, because now we have the technology to help with that. I know I have one client who actually hired me before she got pregnant because she knew she was gonna do IVF. She really wanted twins. And so they put in a boy and a girl, they both stuck, and now she has twins to this day. So it's gonna be more common to have this kind of pregnancy, the dizygotic twins, with when you have assisted reproductive technology. Those numbers, the 70-30, are gonna be natural numbers. So let's say you go to your doctor and they do an ultrasound and they say, actually, surprise, there's two babies in there. All right. Eventually, they're going to, and eventually meaning from the very beginning, they're going to want to know, do we have a dichorionic placenta or do we have a dizygotic twin, right? Now, how much you know that, you're not actually going to know unless you do like nip testing, and even that isn't totally accurate. But in general, about 80 to 90% of the dichorionic, meaning with the membranes, they have two membranes that they see, are going to be associated with two separate eggs that were fertilized. Okay, so dizygotic, two different types of twins. Okay, and the rest, the like 10 to 20%, are going to be associated with this. So sort of a cue for you that if you have two chorions, you have a membrane separating the two, that you probably have dizygotic twins. Now, the easiest way to know if you have identical versus non-identical twins is if you have two genders, all right? So in this case, we have pink, blue. It can be whatever colors you think of, but let's say they get a little bit bigger. They start to look for gender and their sexual organs, and what they're gonna find is they find a girl, they find a boy. You do not have identical twins, okay? There's no possible way that you have identical twins when you have XX chromosome, XY chromosome. They were 100% two eggs that were fertilized. Now, if you have two girls inside, now you start to think there's a chance that they could be identical. Now, if they see, the other thing they're looking for that we haven't even talked about yet is how many placentas. All right. Now, if there are two placentas, there are two chorions, meaning there are two membranes, because there's never going to be two membranes and one placenta. That just doesn't work out. But if they're looking in there and they see two separate placentas, which they may not always know because they're super stuck together, but let's say they do, you're going to have two bags. You're going to have two separate, it's like two separate pregnancies basically in one pregnancy called twins. All right. But let's say that they see one placenta where they're actually sharing a placenta, and inside there are two cords going to two separate babies. You might have identical twins on your hands, all right? Really, the only way to know is after they're born to actually like look at them and figure that out. Like I said, you might be able to know on a NIPT testing, but you're not always gonna know on that. So what are some things that you can do if you're interested in having twins, or that set you up for having twins? What increases your chances for having twins statistically? One would be being in your 30s or older. Not to give myself away, but I would be within that realm of things. So I have a higher chance of having twins. If you're taking medicine to help you get pregnant, I mentioned like a Clomid, any kind of pills to help with ovulation. You've been seeing a fertility specialist. You've done in vitro fertilization. Now, mind you, you would have the decision to say like, I want one embryo placed inside and we'll take our chances because I don't want twins. Or no problem, I'm totally fine if I get twins, or I just will get one. We'll see what happens. Throw two in there and see what happens. That's gonna be, you would have an idea that you would have twins. Now, in vitro, can the embryo split into two babies? The answer is yes. It's pretty uncommon, but you still can technically have twins. And in general, statistically speaking, you are gonna be at higher chance of having twins just by having any kind of reproductive technology to help you get pregnant. Twin pregnancies are going to be more common in Black people than Asian or white, just by genetics. If you have a family history of twins, that's going to increase your chances. I know for me, I've said that like I think twins are the most adorable thing. I think it's so fun. You kind of hit two birds with one stone, get two kids out of one pregnancy. But also, I have so much empathy for you twin mamas, because twin pregnancies, first of all, they are considered high risk. That can be stressful, but also they're just really uncomfortable. Like, pregnancy is already uncomfortable, and then you add another baby in there, and I'm like, oh, I have so much empathy for the discomfort of pregnancy that you go through. And so I don't know if that would be something that I'd be interested in, but I have a whole lot of family history of twins in my family, knock on wood. We'll see what happens when I eventually have a baby. All of these things are gonna increase your chances of having fraternal twins, not really identical twins though. The identical twins thing is just a floof accident, a floof amazing thing that happens where you actually just get two babies out of that one egg. It just happens based on biology and the splitting of the cells. So to review, there are different types of twins. Mono means one, di means two. We are gonna ask the question to our doctor, do I have two sacs, chorion, amnion, if you're being real specific, the outer membrane, is there a split membrane between the two babies, okay? And I'm gonna talk about what increases your risk and what that means for your birth, because there is different recommendations based on how many sacs you have, based on how many placentas you have, right? And those two placentas are going to give us some indication of you know, boy, girl, fraternal, not fraternal, or identical twins. And that is going to guide your care for the labor and birth. So when we say you have a mono-di pregnancy or a mono-mono pregnancy, di-di pregnancy, a di-di pregnancy means that you have two water bags, two placentas. Okay, and two babies. Okay, if you have a mono pregnancy, that means both babies are with one sac, one placenta. And then mono-di means two placentas, one sac. So let me know down below what type of pregnancy you had, what type of pregnancies you've had in your friends. And then we are gonna come back for part 2, where I am going to talk about how to prepare mentally for your delivery, what's normal, when to expect to give birth, what are the recommendations for each of those types of pregnancy, but I couldn't teach that until you understood that there are different types of pregnancies. The other thing is that I have a really helpful infographic on my Instagram, so you can head on over to Instagram and follow me at Bundlebirth. I will repost it once this video goes live so that you can find it in the feed really easily, and you can see and swipe and see pictures of this type of pregnancy with the twins inside of one uterus. I am sending so much love to you twin and multiples mamas, those of you that have had them, that are breastfeeding them, or that are pregnant with them right now. It is gonna be okay, you are gonna make it, and I'm here to support you along the way. Hopefully you find these videos really helpful. Let me know your favorite tip you learned, something that surprised you, in the comment box down below, and then head on over to bundlebirth.com because I have all sorts of classes over there, other information, support, etc. Follow me on Instagram, like I said. Make sure you subscribe down below, give it a like, share with a friend if you liked it, and with all your twin mamas. And then until next time, don't forget to flex and flow, and I will see you soon. Bye. So before we get into it, make sure you check out the description box down below. Nope, there'd be no reason for that. So before we get started, that felt weird. I wanna know in the
Not the double flex and flow.
Oh, I got the double.
Because
we did
twins,
the double. We are flexing and flowing a whole lot more. We're doubling the flex and flow.